Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and at last I thought we'd take a look at this. What we've got here is we've got a Apricot XEN. As you know, I quite like my Apricot computers. I've got the earlier XI range, the F series range of Apricot computers. Now, although they're a PC, they aren't 100% IBM compatible. The XEN range here was the first Apricot computer which was 100% IBM compatible. It started off with the XEN/I, which I think that was a 286 base system with I think the early ones had a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive on them, and then I think the later ones had the standard 3.5 inch floppy drive. They then went to the Apricot XI, the Apricot XEN-S rather than the Apricot XEN-I, and the XEN-S is pretty much the same computer, only that it's a 386. And the reason why I'm really interested in this computer, and the reason why I actually wanted to get hold of one, is back when I was still in secondary school, in high school, it was one of these, it was a XEN computer like this. Was one of the first, well, I think it was the first computer that I actually upgraded for someone. I think I had a 486 at the time. I either still had my 286 or I had a 486 at the time. I think I had my 486. And someone else in the school, I won't say he was a close friend or anything, but someone that I knew through a friend of a friend, his dad had given him one of these he got from, I think they must have been selling them off wherever he'd worked, and he bought him this Apricot XEN computer with the, I think it was a 14-inch, I think, colour monitor. And he had the XEN keyboard as well, which sadly I haven't got, but it was like a really fancy keyboard with extended, it had a little LCD display on it, extended keys and things like that. And I remember I helped him put a sound card in it because he wanted to play, obviously he was, 13, 14, I think we were around 13 or 14. And obviously, he wanted to play games with sound on them. And I think we put it was either an ad-lib clone or a Sound Blaster, original Sound Blaster card. I know it was a 8-bit card. And I remember I helped him do that, and later on I helped him put a bigger hard drive in it, which was quite the upheaval. I'll show you why when we actually get into this thing, because it's not as standard as a PC, and the only PCs I'd really played with at the time had been fairly standard beige box PCs. This is the first one I'd played with that was actually, a bit more designed by the manufacturer, a bit more proprietary. So, like I said, I've always wanted to get one of these for my own collection. Unfortunately, Apricot stuff seems to be quite sought after, and people on eBay seem to want quite a premium for it. They're usually in the, even I've seen them for a few £100, Apricot stuff. This one I was really lucky. I managed to get a really good deal on it. I didn't pay over an exorbitant amount for it or anything. It was obviously sold completely as is, just this, so like I said, no accessories or anything with it. But as far I've had a quick look inside it, I've not really gone in depth into this computer at all yet. I literally just lifted the lid to have a quick check that it was reasonably complete, and yes, it is. And there's no expansion cards in it, but it doesn't have its hard disk in it. The floppy disk's there. Apart from that, like I said, I really haven't looked at this thing, so that's what I thought we'd do in this video. I thought we'd have a quick look over it inside, make sure we can't see anything that's too nasty in there. And then before I haven't even attempted to power up this thing yet. I don't know when the last time this thing was attempted to be powered up, to be fair. So what I really want to do before I just shove power in it and see what happens is I want to pull the power supply out, and we'll actually test the power supply separately on the bench, make sure that the voltages coming out of it are something sensible, and then we'll actually have a look at seeing if we can get this Apricot to at least first fire up. I'm sure we're not going to get this thing fully running in this video. I know that these things are going to have some issues. I know that there's a backup battery on board, for instance, that I don't know whether it's leaked or not. When I had a tertiary look over, I couldn't see any major corrosion, but it will most certainly be dead. And I believe that these things really don't work without their backup battery in it. From bits of research that I have done on them, I believe that without that battery, it can't save any of its settings. Even when you're going through between different menu settings in to set the BIOS up, it won't save anything at all. But like I say, we'll see if we can at least get it to flash something up on the screen in this video. We might even see possibly we can get it to perhaps, you know, boot a floppy disk or something like that. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's get inside it. Now, from the back, I mean, simplicity itself really, it's fairly standard for like a generic PC, well, you know, a manufactured PC. We've got onboard VGA graphics, we've got a 9-pin serial, we've got an onboard parallel, and slightly unusual is that we've got a Molex connector at the end there with 12 volts ground and plus 5 volts on it. So you could obviously power an external device from the Molex power connector there. We've got 3 ISA expansion slots. We've got a key lock to actually stop. That's not a keyboard lock, that's actually a case lock to stop you being able to open the case up. Fortunately, it was open when I got the computer and I don't have the key for it. Then we have what I do find strange. Oh, then underneath, and it's not populated in this one, but these could actually come with network built in. I believe the one the lad at school had the network built into it. You could always put a network card in there, and one of the things when we get into this, where I'm going to do some upgrades and things to this computer, I would like some form of network card. It would be fantastic to get an original Apricot network card, which will actually go in there and then obviously connects up onto the board. I think it plugs into it's like a data board that plugs into the motherboard. But without that, we can still use network. We can just use like a 3-com network card or something in one of the 3 expansion bays there. It has the most deftly placed power switch of any computer I've ever thought. I mean, centre at the back there, that's your power switch. I mean, you could have thought that the front, the side, anywhere is more, even at the edge of the back there, anywhere's got to be more convenient than sticking it there, but that's where Apricot stuck it. Right, let's get the back off. No tools needed. We've got 2 thumb screws. Take that one out. Take that one out, and now the entire back and the entire case should just slide off. Really nice and simple. Now I've got a fairly standard looking AT power supply there, a standard AT type power switch. We've got I'll get you over here to have a proper look actually, but we've got lots of lovely fluff in there. Fluff's always good, isn't it? We've got 3 full 16-bit ISA expansion slots, so it's not as though we've just got you know, an 8-bit and 2 16 or 2 8s and a 16. We actually do have 3 full 16-bit ISA expansion slots there. So we've got lots of dust. We've got a Chips and Tech chip there, and I'm guessing that very well may be the VGA chipset there. So we've got a floppy drive at the front there. We've got a blank there, which I think would be for a second hard drive, and then we have the main hard drive, the actual hard drive there. And what's unusual, this is a 386. That's an MFM hard drive. Well, it's either MFM or RLL. It's I MFM disk technology anyway, with the two. Basically, you've got a data cable and then a disk control cable split to actually go, and the card that drives that is actually built into the motherboard, so you can't actually take that off. I think we did find a way of disabling that. Like I said, it's over 25 years since I worked on one of these, but that was one of the problems the lad at school had. We wanted to put a bigger hard drive in it for him, because that's only, I think it's either 20 or 32 megabytes. It's a very small, like I said, MFM hard drive, and we filled that up in no time with giving him games and stuff to run on it. And we actually ended up, like I said, it's something that I might even do with this one. What we ended up doing in the end was putting a SCSI card in it, and we managed to get second-hand a 80 megabyte SCSI hard drive and a SCSI controller. I think it was an Adaptec SCSI controller, and we actually ended up putting that in it, and I'm pretty sure we had a hell of a job stopping it trying to boot off the original hard drive. We actually took that off, and I think we did eventually find a way of disabling that on the main board, and like I said, we booted it with SCSI. I think we did, yeah, we did try getting it to work with an IDE hard drive, and we just could not get it to work at all with an IDE hard drive, but we did get it to work with the SCSI one. So like I said, if I do decide I'm going to upgrade the hard disk in there, that's something else I'm probably going to have to go into again. I think I've got a suitable SCSI card actually that should fit in here. The problem again you have is you're limited to like half length cards in this. You can't fit the full length ISA cards in here because you've not got a lot of room. You are quite limited. Right, in fact I'd have to look, see if I can actually squeeze the SCSI cards that I've got. I've only got a couple of ISA SCSI cards, most of mine are actually PCI. But yeah, right, what I'm going to do before we actually crack into this, I'm just going to reposition the camera and we'll get you down here and you can have a bit of a close. In fact, yeah, what I'll do, because we're going to have to take the drives and everything out so we can have a really good look, check out under here. So I'll get you over the top of here and then we'll do a bit more of a strip down. You'll see a little bit better than you can at the moment. So back in a sec. Right, okay, I think the first thing we want to do is actually disconnect this so we can take the floppy drive and the hard drives out and actually have a proper good look at the main board before we really go any further. Let's see if we can find a screwdriver. There, we've got one. Okay, and we will have a look at taking. Let's try and take the shielding off first and see what that reveals. So it is over 25 years since I did anything with one of these. I've not had a sneak peek or anything before I started this video, so you're literally diving into it the same as me. I don't think there's a huge amount on YouTube about these. I know there's one video, he's called CalGen Studios, I think he's over in Canada, who does a reinstall on one, but that's actually the earlier, that's the 286 version of this. He has it running Windows version 1 and Gem Desktop. Right, okay, so we're in. And we have, oh right, so we've got a Minscribe hard disk. I'm not 100% sure what size it is. It's probably either a 20 or a 32 megabyte. So it's either RLL or MFM technology. I'm not 100% sure, I'd have to look it up, but that's actually to do with the controller rather than the drive. You can use an MFM drive on an RLL control, or is it the other way around? You can use an RLL drive and an MFM controller, either both interchangeable. But I know that it doesn't work at the same size depending on which controller you're using. But everything's here. It doesn't actually look in terrible condition, to be fair. Right, I'm hoping we can actually lift out. I'm just trying to remember how you do it. I think we have to disconnect this from here, and we should be able to lift this entire tray out with the hard drive and the floppy drives on it. So we're not going to be going into a full restore on this in this video, but it would be nice to see how much work we're going to have to do to this to actually get it into a usable state. Right, let's disconnect the power. Disconnect the power from the hard drive. Dear me. I'll give you enough length on them. And we'll have to disconnect the power from the floppy drive. That was easy enough. And we'll have to disconnect the data from the... in fact, it might be better disconnecting them off the main board. Yes, we will be. So we'll lift that up now. I can just pull that out. That's the floppy drive. That's all our LEDs to the front panel. And that's our... that's the disk control cable, and that's the data cable for the hard disk. And now we should be able to lift all that free. Oh, we've got a speaker there we need to disconnect. Right, and we should be able to pull the drive assembly out. There we go. That's the drive assembly out. And to be fair, apart from a hell of a lot of fluff, it doesn't look in bad condition. It doesn't look as though, really fortunately, it doesn't look as though this thing's been damp. I can't see any signs of damp on the board. I can't see any real signs of... I'll just put my glasses on so I can see properly. But no, I can't see any signs of real corrosion on the board at all. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a memory expansion in it. These came with 1 megabyte basically soldered onto the motherboard, which we have here. And to upgrade it, you had to use a expansion card, which plugged in at the top there. Now, the lad that I knew that had one of these, he actually had a 1 megabyte expansion module on there, so his computer had 2 megabytes of RAM. Again, that was one of the problems that we did have with it. We really wanted to see if we could upgrade the RAM. He wanted to try and run Doom on it. I did keep saying that I thought the processor was probably a little bit on the slow side for that, but he did keep saying, well, he'd seen it running on all your slower computers, and he'd seen it running on my 386 SX20 laptop. So he really wanted to try and run Doom on it, but unfortunately, like I said, with 2 megabytes of RAM, it didn't have enough to run Doom, and we tried seeing if we could get a RAM module for it, and I mean, this is pre the internet. Everywhere we tried, basically said no, you can't get them. Apparently a third party actually did make an adapter board that went on here, which I think had a couple of 30-pin SIM slots on it, and you could just add some 30-pin SIMs, but again, we couldn't track one of them down or anything. So eventually I think he got a Pentium when Pentiums came out. I think his parents bought him a multimedia Pentium. But like I said, that was the first time he could play Doom at home. But yeah, this has only got 1 megabyte of RAM on it. For what I want to be fair, for what I want to play on this, I'm going to have this as if I can get it working, and if everything goes to plan, what I really want this as is a retro gaming rig for early, say, you know, 87 to 91 kind of era games. They should work really nicely on this, and I've got that ad-lib sound card that I built. That would be really nice to go in here, and possibly I could even, if I can, do what I did and put a SCSI hard drive in it, and slightly bigger than the 20. I think it's 20 meg that it's got. But when we can start with that hard, if indeed that hard drive works, there's a good chance it's probably dead. But we will see. We'll have a go at that. But before we can get that far into it, we need to see what we can do with this. What I'm going to do now then is I'm going to pull the power supply out, and we'll actually, in fact, we don't need to actually pull the power supply out of the case. What we could do is just disconnect the main board there, and we want to check the voltages, basically want to check our voltages on here and make sure there's nothing ridiculous. We can also check for our 12 and our 5 on there, to be honest. If there's nothing that's looking too ridiculous there, I think we might actually go and see if it'll power up and see what we actually can. I mean, it's standard VJ output on this. This is the nice thing. The 286 that came before this, I think, was either Hercules, CJ, or EGA. I mean, Herc and CJ, I suppose, I haven't got too much of a problem with, but I don't have an EGA monitor here. This being the 386 version, like I said, it's got a standard VGA output on it, which is makes it quite nice, really. So what we need is some power to power that up. Let's see what we've got. In fact, what I might be able to do is just pinch the power out of my little bridge PC here, if I haven't already nicked it for something else. I should really get more organised when I'm making these videos, you know. What I'll do is I'll just quickly pause you, and I'll get some power sorted out, and we can have a first test and try powering the power supply up. Like I said, and we'll see, make sure we've got some sensible voltages coming out of there. We've got some sensible voltages coming out of there. We can take it a little bit further. Okay, so we're back in a sec. Okay, well, I found a nice hot IEC lead there, so turn that round so we can get to it easy enough. So we know we're not going to do any damage to the main board, because that's completely disconnected from the power supply while we do the initial tests. So let's put some. I mean, you could strip that power supply down and do a visual inspection inside it, but I'm reasonably confident no one's been in there fiddling. So, and all it can really do is emit a bit of magic smoke. So we've got that powered up. We'll get a test meter, so we can actually check some voltages. I've got a test meter here. We'll set that to the 20 volt range on DC. We've got the power connector that we're going to actually, well, we can start actually with just checking the 12 volts and 5 volts on there, and if we're happy with that. So we should have like a minus, I think a minus 12 and a minus 5 on there that we want to make sure are happy. The 12s and the 5s, if they're alright on there, there's no reason why they shouldn't be alright on there, because they're derived from the same source. Right, let's switch it on and see what happens. Well, it's powered up, the fan's switched on, so far so good. Let's take one of the Molex connectors here, we'll go into a ground. It should be 12 volt, oh, that should be 5 volts, sorry. 5.2, that's close enough, I'm happy with that. Let's try the 12 volt side. 11, again, it's a tiny tad low, but it's not horrendous. It's perfectly good enough for initial power up. We'll test on here as well. We'll put that in there. We'll use the back, because this has actually got pins on that side, which isn't as easy to connect, so we can use the back of the connector. We'll go in there for a ground. You know, we should have our 5 here. And indeed we do. We should have a 12 here. And indeed we do. This should be one of the minuses. Oh, that's another 5. Now Let's see if we can find one of the other. Ah, right, okay. There's our -12. And I was expecting to have a -5 on here as well, but perhaps I'm wrong. So we've got a +5 there. That's a different. That could be a switched 5 though. But everything looks reasonably within where I'd expect it to be anyway. That's the important thing. We'll switch that off there. And we can reconnect and get a little bit of this fluff out of the way. I will go through and do like I said, we'll do another video on this. This is just the initial, let's see what the computer's going to do. So basically we're in assessment mode at the moment. We're just trying to find out what works, what doesn't work. I think I am going to connect the hard drive. I'm not expecting it to be able to boot for the simple fact that I'm pretty certain that but it does look a little bit manky around that battery, so we will have to do some investigation around there, but I'm not too worried for now. I certainly can't see a load of green guns or anything around it, so we may have got away with it. We'll take the hard drive and the floppy drives. We'll get these connected back up. Just in the miracle that there is actually some life in the still in the CMOS, it may boot. I very, very, very much doubt this is going to boot. Like I said, I believe they won't do anything once they've lost their BIOS settings, but you do never know. Right, that should be okay. I need to reconnect that one because that is the LED status lights on the front there. Get that back up. Now that wants to go in there because, oh no, it could go across the front. You can just go straight in there, that'll be okay. We'll set this back where it should go. And most importantly, let's connect the speaker back up, because I'm sure it's going to give us some post beeps. There we go. I'll have to go back down there. I think that's all sat in as it should do. Yeah, that's looking okay. I won't put any of the screws back in because obviously we're going to be going back into it, but I do want it all to sit reasonably where it should be. Put the Molex for the hard drive and for the floppy back in. That in there. These are always fiddly. There we go, that's connected back up, so at least we might be able to see the drive seek anyway. And we're going to need some VGA for it. We'll pinch that out of the back of my little bridge PC here. In fact, we're going to need a keyboard as well, and we can pinch that off this bridge PC. This is something I am not actually 100% sure about, because I know that the one that lad had, he did have the Apricot keyboard with it. Now I am guessing that's going to be a problem. Yeah, the VGA connector there has got a pin blanked off. The connector I've got here doesn't, so we're going to have to do something about that. Just bear with me, folks. I'll be right back as soon as I've seen it, as soon as I've sorted that little issue out there. Right, okay, that problem's solved. Basically what I did, what you've got to remember is that not all pins on a VGA connector are actually used. And the thing is, with these cheap connector leads, it's just a really cheap VGA to VGA cable. Generally speaking, they have all the pins in, even though they're not used. Most modern monitors, most modern video cards obviously have all the pins there, so it's not an issue. On some of this earlier stuff, they did tend to blank off unused pins, so I don't. This really won't cause a problem for use with this in the future. But even if it did, it's a £1 VGA cable. It's nothing things like that. Rather than modify the connector on the computer, all I did was I took a screwdriver and just worried the pin backwards and forwards until it broke off. Problem solved. It now fits quite nicely into the VGA connector there. So we'll connect that in place. The only thing we need now is a keyboard, and that's, as I was saying before, I'm just hoping that a standard PS2 keyboard is going to work with this, because the original Apricot keyboard was something a little bit fancy. Now I'm just hoping that it, like I said, it was basically PS2 compatible. The keyboard connector's here on the side of the computer. Now, I haven't actually tried this, but yeah, it does fit. Like I said, I'm pretty certain that that will be PS2 standard. Next to it, we've got obviously a connector for the mouse, and that is a standard COM port. It's just a standard serial port. They've just put it next there, obviously, so you're saying keyboard and mouse. So I'm pretty certain that I should be able to use this fairly standard. It's totally out of period, but I've got a Microsoft PS2 keyboard there, so we can at least try that and see if that's going to work. Let's set the monitor for VGA. Hang on. PC, there we go, so that's set for PC. We need some power, don't we? So let's get the power cable and plug that into the back of the Apricot, and then we can see what's going to happen. Now that's out, yeah, that's okay. Plug that in. So that's everything connected to see if we actually get anything to come up on the screen. In fact, what I'll do is I'll drop you down a little bit, and then I'll bring you up a little bit so you can actually see the screen as well as the computer. And we will fire up and we'll see if anything happens. So here we go. Oh wow! Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but we've got Apricot XEN-S series personal computer, Phoenix ROM BIOS, version 3.10, copyright 85 to 88, Phoenix Technology. So it's got a Phoenix BIOS in it. So I can't remember. It's that long ago since I've played with one of these things. I really couldn't remember. But we've got copyright 1989. So this is a slightly later one. I thought the 386 version come out in about 87, but I could be wrong. But this is saying 89, so this is perhaps a slightly later version of it. But yeah, as I thought, we've only got 1 megabyte of RAM. We've got a 640k base memory, but we've got 384k extended memory, so we do have a full 1 megabyte of RAM, which means this thing would actually run Windows 3.1. Not very well, but it would actually run it. Then obviously we've got invalid configuration information, please run setup program, strike F1 to continue. So we'll hit F1, no boot device available, strike F1 to retry. It's at least trying to seek for the floppy drive. just bear with me a sec and I will see if I've got any 3.5 inch boot discs, because we'll actually see if this thing will boot a disc, so back in a sec. Right, okay, I've had a little hunt about and I've actually found some software. All my PC stuff's in storage at the moment, but I did manage to find a couple of discs that have possibility we've got something that might boot. We've got DOS 5 here, so we've got a DOS 5 boot disc. I don't know whether it does work, but I'm guessing it does. I'm guessing I actually did make it for something. So let's put that in. F1. No, we could have a bad floppy drive. We've either got a bad floppy drive or a bad floppy disk. Now I've got a DOS 622 boot disk here as well. It's a DOS 62 setup disk, but same thing. So we'll give this a try, see if this will... I can hear the actual drive mechanism whirring, but it's not looking like it's wanting to actually... No, we're not actually getting any attempt to boot the disk. Like I said, I can hear the motor going in the disk drive, but I cannot actually hear the head trying to move or anything. It could be we've got a faulty disk drive, we could have a fault with the drive controller. I don't think it's the actual boot media, because I mean these are discs out of my good known working disc boxes. It's not as though they're just random discs. Like I said, these did work last time I used them. I have absolutely no reason why they shouldn't work now. So I think we do have an issue, like I say, it's either with the disk drive itself. Let me get you back down onto the computer a bit. These disk drives suffer with the same issues as all other drives really. You get capacitor problems in them, you get grease, basically mechanical problems caused by the grease seizing up in them. So it could just be as simple as we've got an iffy disk drive. It's not quite as, well I suppose it is, it's a standard mechanism, but the faceplate on the front is actually it's like an Amiga 2000 one. It's actually a slightly deeper floppy disk front than a standard 3.5 inch PC one. The hard drive unfortunately doesn't actually appear to be spinning. Now I thought the hard drive did spin up initially when we first started the computer up, but that hard drive, let me just power back off. In fact, we will try one final switch back on. Let's try just stick a boot disk actually in the computer and see if that does anything. I'm not holding up much hope. Like I said, I have a feeling we're probably going to have to look into the floppy drive. But I don't think the hard drive is doing anything at all. I didn't actually hear it spin up, I don't think. It's got power to it, definitely. Let's try again. Now I can hear the fan for the power supply. Disk drive seeked, but like I said, I don't think... No, the floppy drive, like I say, it's spinning, but I can't hear the heads moving at all, so I think we do have an issue with the floppy drive. And the hard drive is just completely dead. It's not spinning, it's not doing anything. So obviously we're going to have a look, see what we can do with the hard drive. If we can't get the hard drive going, I might actually have another MFM stroke RLL 3.5 inch hard drive that probably would fit in here. I'm also pretty sure I've got something SCSI, which isn't a ridiculous size, a few hundred megabytes, SCSI hard drive and an Adaptec card. It's if there's enough space actually in there to fit the Adaptec card in. Can't remember, I think it was an Adaptec that we put in that lad's computer, but I can't, it's so long ago I can't 100% remember. I know it was something we got second hand with the hard drive, as a package. Someone was upgrading and just sold the entire thing off as one. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. We've seen first boot, we've seen that the computer actually does, the motherboard is not dead, let's put it that way. We've got plenty of things to sort out on this computer. We're going to have to deal with that Varta battery at the back there. We're going to have to, I can't see a lot of like fluff of fur or anything around there, but it does look manky. The motherboard is full of fluff, it's going to need a complete clean. Obviously we're going to need to sort the floppy drive out. We're going to have to see if we can address the hard drive. Like I said, unfortunately, I mean, it could change. I could be able to find something. In fact, probably an XT-IDE card with the compact flash adapter would be able to work in there, so that would be able to be configured to work. But it would be no faster than that hard drive, being it's 8-bit. In fact, that's probably going to be a tiny little bit faster. It probably would be a case of going the SCSI route, being that that's got its own boot ROM. That's why we got it to work. We just disabled everything on board, and obviously the SCSI card had its own boot ROM, so that can take over booting the hard drive. Like I said, we might end up going that way. I might have to have a look through and see if I do have one of these. We could perhaps try initially. We might even have a go seeing if we can resurrect that hard drive, although I've watched a few videos of people resurrecting hard drives. Personally, I've not ever had a huge amount of success doing it, but we can play, we can try. And again, with the floppy drive, it would be really nice to repair that floppy drive rather than to replace it. Or if we do have to replace it, we're going to have to find one that uses the same basic mechanism, so we can actually reuse the apricot front there. So like I said, it's not a standard height. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Be looking out for a part 2 on this computer, and I'm guessing it's not going to be too long, because I would really like to get this thing up and running and be able to play things like Commander Keen and stuff on it. I hope you enjoyed that little venture into this XEN-Xi. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.